You wake up to the cold bite of dawn. The air smells of damp pine and wood smoke. Your muscles ache from yesterday's trek across the valley. You look around the small encampment. For most of human history, this morning routine looked very different. You would not be looking only at faces that look exactly like yours. You might see a heavy-browed Neanderthal shaping a flint blade by the fire. You might see a tiny island human tending to the roasting meat. Why does this sound like a strange dream? For nearly 300,000 years, sharing the planet with other human species was not a fantasy. It was simply reality. Today, you look in the mirror and see the lone survivor of a vast evolutionary family. You are completely alone. What happened to the others? You look at your hands. Your fingers are nimble. Your skin is relatively hairless. Your brain consumes a massive portion of your daily calories. It feels normal because it is all you know. But you are a strange anomaly in the history of life. For millions of years, the Earth was home to a diverse crowd of human species. Scientists call this group the genus Homo, which is just the biological category for any creature distinct enough to be called human. At one point, at least 8 different human species walked the Earth simultaneously. Some were massive giants who hunted mammoths in the frozen north. Others were island dwellers who grew no taller than a modern 3-year-old child. They all had brains, tools, languages, and cultures. Yet one by one, they all flickered out into the dark. Only your ancestors remained. How did your specific lineage win the ultimate game of survival? The answer lies buried deep inside your own cells. In 2010, a groundbreaking genetic study led by researcher Svante Pääbo at the Max Planck Institute changed everything. Pääbo and his team successfully sequenced the ancient DNA of a Neanderthal. They discovered something shocking. If your ancestry originates outside of sub-Saharan Africa, between 1 and 2% of your DNA comes directly from Neanderthals. Your ancestors did not just fight them, they loved them. They had children with them. This genetic blending is called introgression, which means the passing of genes from one distinct species into another. Later discoveries in Denisova cave in Siberia revealed yet another lost cousin. The Denisovans left their genetic mark in the populations of modern Oceania and parts of Asia. You are not a pure species. You are a walking mosaic of the ghosts that came before you. Why did their physical forms disappear if their genes survived inside you? To understand this, you must look at how your ancestors moved across the landscape. Roughly 70,000 years ago, a small band of Homo sapiens walked out of Africa. They entered a world that was already fully occupied. Neanderthals had ruled Europe and the Middle East for hundreds of thousands of years. They were incredibly strong. Their bodies were compact and perfectly adapted to conserve heat during the brutal Ice Age winters. Their brains were actually larger than yours. If you met a Neanderthal today, you would be struck by their immense physical power. Yet, when your ancestors arrived, the Neanderthals began to fade. Archaeologist Jean-Jacques Hublin has spent decades analyzing ancient human sites across Europe, including findings at Jebel Irhoud. His work suggests that your ancestors did not necessarily wage a brutal war of extinction against their cousins. Instead, they outcompeted them through a subtle, invisible weapon. What was this secret advantage? It was not physical strength. It was not even raw brain power. It was the structure of your ancestors' social world. Researcher Polly Wiesner conducted a famous long-term study of the Juhonzi hunter-gatherers in southern Africa. She analyzed the difference between daytime talk and nighttime talk around the campfire. During the day, people talked about hunting strategies, tools, and resource gathering, but at night, everything changed. Around the fire, 80% of the conversation turned to storytelling, mythology, and social networks. Your ancestors used the night to build massive imaginary worlds. They created shared myths, gods, and rules of conduct. This allowed them to cooperate with total strangers. A Neanderthal band rarely exceeded 20 or 30 individuals, and they rarely interacted with distant groups. Your ancestors, however, could form alliances across hundreds of miles based on a shared story. When the climate shifted or food became scarce, your ancestors could call upon a vast network of distant friends. The Neanderthals were isolated. They stood alone against the cold. Let us reconstruct a typical winter evening 40,000 years ago. You are sitting inside a limestone cave in southern France. Outside, a blizzard rages. Your fire is small because firewood is scarce. Your belly rumbles with hunger. Across the valley, A family of Neanderthals is facing the exact same storm. They are starving too, but their response is purely local. They rely entirely on their own immediate strength to hunt the next morning. If their best hunter is injured by a woolly rhino, the entire family faces death. Now look back at your ancestors' camp. Your leader holds a carved piece of ivory. It is a symbolic token given to him by a tribe 3 valleys away. Tomorrow, your hunters will walk through the snow to that distant camp. Because of that ivory token, those strangers will share their meat with you. This is the power of symbolic culture. It turns strangers into brothers. The Neanderthals could never scale up their society. Their small groups suffered from inbreeding, low genetic diversity, and vulnerability to sudden ecological shocks. They did not die because they were stupid. They died because they were lonely. This brings us to a deeply counterintuitive twist. For a long time, popular culture portrayed your ancestors as brutal, violent conquerors who slaughtered everything in their path. But the true story is much more tragic and beautiful. Your ancestors may have simply swamped the other species through sheer numbers and genetic absorption. Imagine a vast ocean of Homo sapiens slowly flowing into a landscape containing small, isolated puddles of Neanderthals and Denisovans. Every time the species met and interbred, the smaller gene pool was diluted. Over thousands of years, the distinct physical traits of the Neanderthals, their heavy brows, their robust chests, were slowly washed away by the overwhelming numbers of your ancestors. They did not vanish because they failed. They vanished because they became you. Their disappearance was not a sudden slaughter but a slow, quiet melting into the modern human lineage. There is another cousin you must consider. On the remote island of Flores in Indonesia, a species named Homo floresiensis survived until around 50,000 years ago. They are often called the Hobbits of human evolution. Because they were trapped on an isolated island with limited food, they underwent a process called insular dwarfism. Their bodies shrank over generations to conserve energy. They stood only 3 feet tall, yet they hunted giant storks and miniature elephants. Their brains were the size of a chimpanzee's, but they chipped sophisticated stone tools and controlled fire. They lived in an isolated paradise for hundreds of thousands of years. But then, your ancestors arrived on boats. Within a short evolutionary window after Homo sapiens made landfall in Wallacea, the tiny island humans disappeared. Your ancestors carried an insatiable hunger for exploration and expansion. Every corner of the planet they touched changed forever. This relentless expansion reveals the dark side of your success. Your ancestors were ecological pioneers, but they were also ecological disasters. Wherever Homo sapiens walked, the large megafauna disappeared, and the other human species vanished shortly after. You possess a unique psychological drive that no other creature on Earth has ever shown. A Neanderthal could look across a vast body of water and feel no desire to cross it if their current valley had enough food. Your ancestors looked at the open ocean and built rafts even when they could not see land on the horizon. They were driven by an intense curiosity and a restless energy. This trait allowed you to colonize every environment on Earth, from the frozen Arctic tundra to the deepest tropical rainforests, but it also meant that any other human species in your path was gradually squeezed out of existence. Your ancestors took their caves, consumed their hunting grounds, and crowded them out of the best habitats. Now, look at how you live your life today. You sit in front of a glowing screen in a temperature-controlled room. You order food with a tap of your finger. You can communicate with someone on the other side of the planet in less than a second. You live in a world of unprecedented connection. Yet, a strange epidemic of loneliness plagues modern society. Why do you feel so isolated in a world of billions? Your brain is still wired for that ancient campfire 40,000 years ago. You are built to sit in a small circle, looking into the eyes of people you know deeply, sharing stories that bind you together. You have traded the deep, intimate tribal connections of your ancestors for a massive, impersonal global network. Your body is here in the 21st century, but your mind is still searching for the safety of the tribe. The very social instinct that allowed your ancestors to outcompete the Neanderthals is now starved for real, physical presence. You are the final product of a brutal million-year elimination tournament. Every trait you possess, your anxiety, your need for social approval, your restless curiosity, your drive to create art, was forged in the fires of prehistoric competition. You survived not because you were the strongest, but because you were the most cooperative. You were the species that could dream up shared realities and build empires out of thin air. But being the winner means carrying a heavy burden. You are the caretakers of the human flame. There is no backup species waiting in the wings if you fail. The Neanderthals are gone. The Denisovans are gone. The tiny hobbits of Flores are gone. The genetic experiments of the genus Homo have narrowed down to a single point. You are the last humans left on Earth. You wake up to the cold bite of dawn. But the wood smoke is gone, replaced by the sterile hum of a modern city. You step out into the world, carrying the genetic ghosts of the ancient past inside your cells. Every step you take across the modern landscape is a testament to the survival of a single, restless lineage. You are the answer to a question asked by the cosmos hundreds of thousands of years ago. As you look out at the crowded streets, remember that your greatest weapon was never a spear or a sword. It was your ability to reach out your hand to a stranger and see a brother. You are the last human species alive, carrying the survival story of a multi-species world inside your beating heart.